Well, welcome everyone to the November 2nd meeting of the Facilities Advisory Committee. I'm the committee chair, Brian Gebhardt, and calling the meeting to order at 7:36. First order of business is our roll call. And going through our member list here, I am present. Cecily Lee, are you present?
Sorry, did you say?
Cecily Lee. I also use this as an opportunity to test AV, test people's AV. I see Cecily Lee on the meeting. When you're able to, please just acknowledge verbally so we know you're here. Malia Santos, our student member, not present. Allison McCauley.
Hi, it's Scottish. It's hard. Don't worry. I'm good. I'm here. Hello.
Sorry.
No, you're great. Don't worry. I'm here.
Tom Ekman.
Present.
Thank you. Mary Vigil.
Present.
Michael Estachio.
Here.
Sharon Coco, she let me know earlier today that she would not be able to make it, so she's not present. Divya Balam Konda, not present. That's one of our new members. Bobby Perry.
Here.
Robert Ho.
Here.
Jennifer Parker.
Here.
Jennifer Aochi.
She let me know she won't be able to join today.
Okay, thank you. And then Benji Craig.
Here.
Thank you.
And then Cecily indicated in the chat that she can hear us, but is having trouble with her microphone and is working on it.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Fantastic. Well, thank you, everybody. We definitely meet quorum. Our next order of business is to adopt the agenda, which was sent out in advance. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I motion. This is Bobby Perry.
Thank you, Bobby. Second?
Seconded. Allison McCauley seconded.
Thank you. All in favor, please raise your virtual hand. All right, please lower your virtual hand. All opposed or any opposed, please raise your virtual hand. All right, fantastic. So motion carries, agenda adopted. Next order of business is introductions. We have a few new members and newly appointed members, and we'll definitely like to go through some introductions to welcome them. So I will start by asking the newly appointed members to introduce themselves, but then I think that's enough. I'm trying to look at how crowded the agenda is, but it just is a kind thing. Maybe I'll ask everybody to briefly introduce themselves too, just like who you are and the group you represent after meeting the new members. So Benji, would you take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, my name's Benji Craig. I've got one son at Walters and one at Kennedy, and been a longtime resident of Fremont, and I own an electrical contracting business here in Fremont.
Welcome. And just for reference, my understanding is you're a representative as a Kennedy parent, although you have other interests you represent as well. And then Divya, if you could introduce yourself and
Hey everyone, I'm driving, so I'm going to switch off my video.
Oh,
I'm at a signal, so I switched it on. I'm Divya Bellamkonda. I joined recently. I served for 2 years as LCAC member. I've been a long-term Fremont resident too. I have two boys, fourth and sixth grade at Warwick Elementary. But I'm here as a community member, I guess, as a general community member.
yep. Welcome and drive safely. The
Yeah, thank you.
I'm Brian Gebhardt, the chair parent of Washington, and then I just ask if people could go in order of your first name, alphabetical order of your first name on the call. Just quickly introduce yourself so that we, build some new community with our new members, at least a little bit in this virtual world. So, Allison.
Hi, yes, I'm Allison McCauley. I am the library media teacher at Irvington, and on this committee, I'm representing FUDTA, the teachers union, but I live in the attendance area of Kennedy, so hi, Benji, neighbors. And yeah, I'm excited to be here as representing the teachers.
Thank you. And then I know Cecily was having mic trouble, but she's an American parent that was just recently reappointed. And that takes us to Daniel Hillman.
Hello, everybody. Danny Hillman, Associate Superintendent of Business Services.
And feel free to jump in your alphabetical order. Diane Jones is next.
Hello, Diane Jones, Board Trustee.
All right. Divya introduced herself, so Laura, who happens to be FAC Meet at the moment, but Laura, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Laura Forrest. I'm the Public Information Officer for Fremont Unified. I'm not a voting member. I attend as a co-liaison to the committee, and I also take the minutes.
Jennifer.
Hi, everybody. My name is Jennifer Parker. I have 2 students at Kennedy, so I represent the Kennedy attendance area.
Mary.
Hi, my name is Mary Vigil. I work at Washington High School, and I'm representing the CSEA.
Michael.
Hi, I'm Mike Stasio. I work in the maintenance department at Fremont Unified. Also represent SEIU. I'm their treasurer.
Robert.
Hi, I'm Robert Ho. My kids have graduated, so I'm a community member, and I live in the Mission Attendance area. I've been on the committee, I think, since the beginning.
Bobby.
Hi, I'm Bobby Perry. I have 2 alums that attended in the Kennedy attendance area, so I'm considered a community member for Kennedy attendance.
And Tom.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Ekman. I'm the Director of Maintenance, Operations, and Grounds, and I represent the FSMA, the Fremont School Management Association.
Thank you. We'll move on to our next item, which is approval of the minutes from our last meeting, which is Exhibit A in the document that was sent out in advance. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I will motion to approve the minutes. This is Bobby.
Thank you.
And I
Oh, second.
Thank you.
Oh, second, Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Is there any discussion?
I did have a question, if that's okay. That
Yes.
we had talked about. One of the items was an email that may be sent out as an update to the 5 things that we had sent to the board back in, I think, April. No email went out, correct? Is that just part of the agenda now? That was that agenda item, Laura?
Yeah, there was no email communication between the last meetings. It is again on this meeting's agenda.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure. Okay, so in it was the reference to the board, right? And the presentation and the letter that we sent to the board.
Yeah, that prioritization activity that we went through.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
about that board item and what action's been taken since then. Okay.
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 All right. 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 All right.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second. Please raise your virtual hand if you approve the minutes. All right, please lower your virtual hand. Please raise your hand if you do not approve. All right, motion carries. The minutes are approved. It takes us to our next item, oral and written communications. I'm not aware of any. Laura, are you aware of any oral or written communications?
No, I have since the last meeting gained access to that FAC inbox, and the speaker that came to the last meeting was the only person that had sent a message to that email address for quite some time, and her email was on the same topic that she addressed with the committee last month about Walters.
Thank you. Is there any other oral communication? And this would be the time where typically the public would have comments for things that aren't on our agenda. All right. Seeing none, we'll move on to item 6, which is an update on the facilities-related projects reviewed at the April 13th, 2022 board meeting. I'll turn this over to staff.
Okay, thank you. So since the last meeting was my first meeting as an employee of the district, I was able to take the last month and do a little bit of digging and homework to figure out where the list came from and how it was derived. And Laura helped me with that history. And then also we were able to get a couple of updates. So I'm going to go ahead and do this, if you don't mind. That way I can kind of go through them and give you an update where I have it. So this is the board item that is being referenced, correct? And so
Correct.
This item, I'll just skip to the 6 things that are listed here: roofing projects, etc. So as far as the roofing projects go, we're continuing to look at this. Director Tom Ekman and I had a conversation about this, and there is a little bit of progress that has been made as far as having some of the roofs assessed. And so we do have that roofing assessment, and I need to take a look at it with our roofing specialist to make sure that we understand the report. I believe Tom's already had a conversation with the specialist, with the consultant. And so we're going to set up a meeting for that to try to understand the depth of the concern and the problem. I think that what I want to make sure this committee knows at this point is that roofing assessment that was done did a sampling of certain schools and then extrapolating what the other schools are probably in a similar or different condition based upon what they looked at. So my point is they did not go to all 45 schools, all 45 sites. They took a representative and said, okay, this age of roof at this school, if we have other schools that are similar and it's a similar construction, we can expect them to be in a similar condition. And so based upon that, we do something what is called a takeoff. I don't know if you've heard of that before, but basically you can make an estimate of a budget or a cost by saying, all right, I have a linear foot or a square foot cost, and it's going to multiply out by how much you're trying to do, how many school sites, and you get a rough order of magnitude as far as what something may cost. So that's where we are right now with roofing projects. We're continuing to work on that. Number 2, the track and field at TAC. I was made aware within a few days of being in the district about the condition at TAC Stadium. And so we're looking at putting a package together to replace the track and the field at TAC. The best time to do that is over the summer. The good news is that this is the perfect planning time in the fall to get ready for summer. So we're putting the specifications together at this time. We do not have a budget source identified for this yet, but there are ways to put the package together before going out to bid so we have everything ready. And then what we'll do is discuss internally and then ask for the board's permission to earmark some dollars towards the track and field replacement there. And to be clear, this would basically cover the surfaces that are existing there. It's a replacement of services. It's at this time not intended to go beyond that scope and get into anything else in the stadium, just the 2 playing surfaces. For number 3, I don't have an update yet for the parking lot at Hirsch. Number 4, we've met a couple of times about the backstop at Irvington. For those of you that aren't familiar with this item, essentially it's a baseball field backstop that is in need of just typical maintenance and repair. But there's also the added bonus of foul balls being hit into the community. And so we've looked at a couple options here, and we're going to meet again. I asked Mr. Ekman to reach out to a company that does this kind of work. The solution that we have for this right now and the quote that we have, I don't think is actually going to do anything to stop the baseballs. I have a little bit of experience with this kind of project. I've done a couple of these before. And to truly stop the baseballs, and I'm going to use air quotes, stop the baseballs, really requires a very tall fence or netting system that's pretty expensive. And so once we price that out, we'll let you know what it comes to. But and I'm using the air quote stop because you don't stop 100% of the foul balls. That's impossible. You build it to a certain height and they do the algorithm and draw it so that you get a vast majority, a very high percentage of the foul balls from entering the neighborhood. It's impossible to stop them all. So we're working on that. And maybe we'll have a cost estimate. I don't know if we'll have it by December November is an interesting month with the days off and everything. So we have fewer working days, but we're making some progress on that. Shade structure for high schools. This is what the FAC discussed, was specific for high schools. I have been given the task to look at shade structures everywhere. And so this is a situation where we would be doing a takeoff. So for instance, a 30-foot by 30-foot shade structure costs X. We need one at every single elementary school. What are we talking about? How big could this possibly be? We're also in the process of evaluating at the high schools, not just the shade structure area for eating purposes. That'd be the primary reason for high schools, right? Is also looking at where students can eat on campus for a different purpose. So we're kind of combining the shade structure analysis at high school with basically a capacity analysis for how many students can fit on the campus to eat. We'll be doing the same for the middle schools as well. And I don't have an update on the cricket field at Hopkins at this time. So I think I was able to get a little bit of information of 4 of the 6.
Oops, I hit the wrong thing here. Thank you for the updates. And then I see Allison has, I'll go to Allison first. I have a few questions as well.
Sorry, yeah, point of order. I just wasn't sure. Are we allowed to ask questions? Is that okay?
Yeah, as chair, I was just thinking if I wanted to, well, okay, before you jump into that, there was a, so the FAC had a discussion on what to recommend and provided a letter, and it was a very, very complex conversation at the time, and I think it's important for everybody to recall, or especially for new members who haven't read the letter. I would actually recommend looking at it, but just so it's clear to everybody, just that the final recommendation that FAC adopted was this, and I'm going to speak to a piece of it. The FAC does not recommend to approve or not approve any single project, but if the board chooses to move forward with these projects, we rank them in this order. And the rankings was roofing, track and field, parking lot, backstop at Irvington, shade structures, and cricket field. And so really my understanding at the time was really from an advisory standpoint, we were asked whether or not, and we couldn't come to a conclusion on that. And I don't recall what the board direction was at that meeting either, but I think there's an element of how are these projects picked, and what is their priority? And in fact, actually at the time, the FAC, we actually came up with a prioritization framework that I think could be useful as we look at other projects as well. So I wanted to point out that element to this item as well, and then I will probably talk to it more later as a member, not as chair. Now I will turn it over to the committee for discussion now.
I just had a
Yeah.
question about the shade structures. I was curious whether, and of course, we would all love to have more rain, but it's been raining a little bit, and we don't at Irvington. I don't know what the situation is at other schools. We don't have enough space for students to eat inside when it rains. Cafeteria is packed, the library is packed. It requires teachers keeping their rooms open on their duty-free lunch in order for students to actually be able to be inside. We have a lot of students sitting in the hallways, which are also leaking. And so I was just curious whether your explanation of shade structures includes any sort of rain, outdoor rain area, or is it more like shade cloth that lets rain? I was just curious about that because we're dealing with rain and our kids can't fit inside.
This particular task is about sunshade. It is not something that would protect from inclement weather. That said, let me just add one other thing. I think that the concept of not having enough space for students to eat inside somewhere when it is inclement weather is definitely a topic that has already been raised as part of the long-range facilities plan. And each of the individual campuses are reporting that, and it'll get ranked as part, I'll get to that item next, but as part of the update to the school profile and in the long-range facilities plan.
Are there any other comments or questions? Jennifer Parker.
Yeah, just a quick question. I forgot when we talked about these 6 projects originally, was there any funding source already sort of tied to these 6 projects?
I wasn't here, but my understanding is that the answer is no. And so in order for next steps to be taken, my task has been to cost out these 6 items to understand what we're dealing with, so that then the board can make an informed decision based upon the facts input and prioritization, along with updated costs. That information we don't have yet, but we're working towards it. And I have updates on the 4, but not all 6.
Thanks.
Bobby.
I was just going to say, I do appreciate the getting information on the 4 of the 6, and I thought they were good updates. So I really do appreciate it because I've been interested to hear just what was kind of going on with them. So thank you.
Robert.
My memory is probably wrong on this, but I thought that there was money coming to the district, and that's why people were saying, oh, we need this and that and the other thing. And I thought that's why we were discussing these projects. And maybe I'm wrong, because I thought we were also discussing, well, if we have money coming in, we should also backfill our Measure E projects, which are not going to be completed. Okay, if no one else remembers this, then I'm the only one. That's fine. Thanks.
Trustee Jones.
I think you may be right. I think there was some discussion about was it Prop 51 reimbursements? I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was some reimbursement money that was coming to the district that I think folks had in mind for these projects. But there was a lot of discussion about how that money should be used and what the appropriate way to allocate it was. So it was kind of up in the air, but I think that may be the money that was being considered for this.
Right, that matches what my memory is, that it's some unusual money that we weren't expecting and came back for some reason.
Tom.
Yes, I believe that President Jones is correct. I think it was a rebate of some sort from the bond projects. And I think previous Associate Superintendent Pfeiffer had discussed how to spend that money, but I think we also had a discussion after about would it be appropriate to spend that money now with the project still going on?
Danny.
I can clarify what the item is. And it used to be called Prop 51. Yes, this is true. The Proposition 51 was a state level bond, much like our Measure E, where they sold bonds, raised money, and used it for this purpose. Those funds are now gone. But what the state did last year when they had their record-setting revenues at the state level is they allocated some of those state general fund dollars to the Office of Public School Construction, that's OPSC. So generally what we call these, regardless if it's a Prop 51 or another form of funding, is we call this state reimbursements from OPSC. And this is because there is a state building program that anytime we have eligibility, our district and districts across the state put in an application for new construction or modernization grants. So the money is not unexpected. The money is planned for. We're not always sure when we're going to get it because it depends upon when the state has cash flow into the program. So all of you guys are right that you all had a little piece of the puzzle. And so we still anticipate getting some of our grants funded for new construction projects and modernization projects. So we have an idea of when these dollars might come in. But when I said that there wasn't dollars tied specifically to these 6 items, what I went and found or did not find as part of my little research project between last meeting and this meeting was that there was no board direction officially to use any one funding source to fund these 6 things. Hope that helps.
So I wanted to share some comments, my personal comments, like not shared, but harkening back to some of the things I shared back then. I think my big problem, several big problems with this, but one of my biggest problems with this is I'm not sure how these projects were picked. And I think it's super important with our limited funds to be clear about how we're picking projects. So like, why is the Irvington backstop a priority when I know there are other schools with backstops and balls that go into people's yards? I think in just one example, and I think it's a very important that we have some kind of framework or guidelines for considering projects, and I liked the guidance that we came up with in our letter, where we basically ranked projects based on their health and safety impact, their instructional program impact, and their equity impact as guidance. And I thought, and hopefully that it will be of value to the board as they make their decision. But this is my opinion. My opinion is the way in this stuff has been presented to the board made it very difficult for the board to understand, process, and provide good direction. And so I look at both staff and our group as the Facilities Advisory Committee to help do that. So when it gets to the board, they can make these tough decisions as easily, or these tough decisions with the best information and best advice possible. And in this case, it's not, like I said, it's not clear to me why these are chosen. There's some of these that would make sense to move forward, but there's some of these that I still have the opinion I'm not even sure they are worth staff time analyzing with all the other needs we have in the district. And again, this is my opinion. We as a committee, when we reviewed this last time, couldn't come to a recommendation, which is, I think, a signal in and of itself. And so I guess turning that into the next steps question, I guess better understanding the next steps staff is taking in terms of in terms of how to assess and get direction whether to move forward with these projects or not.
The next steps that staff is taking is we are costing these 6 items out so that we can be responsive to this committee and also to the board. That's all I have at this time. Ultimately, the board gets to make the decision based upon the priorities that you've helped them set. But we're not making any recommendations right now. We're just trying to cost everything out.
Is there any kind of ETA on when this might come back?
Well, I can't make a promise. The reason is because we have one meeting this month. We have another meeting in December. We have an agenda item to talk about what FAC wants to do in the month of January. and February, it's really just about staff time is what it boils down to. And so I don't have an update. I'm going to try to get you an update at each meeting. I'm not going to wait for all 6 things to be complete, for instance, to bring it back to you. But we're a little short staffed. I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm just trying to I'm trying to set expectations appropriately. So I will bring things back with quotes as we get them. And I'll give it to you when we have it. We're not going to hold anything back from the committee.
Thank you. And this is my opinion. And obviously if the whole committee endorses this opinion, I would welcome that. But I would think the roofing projects and TAC, which were our top 2 items, would be the things we would want to prioritize. And I personally think some of these other things can wait and be evaluated as part of the long range facilities master plan. The parking lot, the cricket field, the backstop. That's it. And I know this is controversial, I think, and even for me, shade structures. Bobby.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that what we did back last school year when we ranked them, I mean, I thought we did a really good job. And I think that the equity and, the ones that had the health and safety. And I think that we really focused on that. And our recommendation was pretty solid. And, TAC supports the entire district and, so do the roofs. But so I don't disagree with you at all. I agree with you.
Yeah, well, so good discussion. And seeing no further comments, I should move us on to our next agenda item, which is an update on the long range facilities plan.
Okay, let me see if I can present this thing also. So I want to make sure that the committee understands this was a question that came up during CBOC. The document that I'm sharing with you right now was really prepared by the architect in charge of and running the facilities master plan update for staff. It was meant for the facilities team and myself. It wasn't really meant for a committee. So I didn't provide the link ahead of time, not out of any other reason that it wasn't really geared towards this committee, but I wanted to go over a couple of items that are in it because I want to be sure that you see some of the details, especially in light of the conversation that we had at the last meeting, where I know you had a lot of questions, and I want to try to answer as many of those questions as I can. So for those of you that are new to the committee, since this is your first meeting, if you're here, basically we are in the process of using an architect named AE3. They are doing an update to an existing master plan that the district already has. And so this slide deck is a takeoff, or not a takeoff. That's a bad term because I use that for something else. It is a version of this that you have seen before that has been presented to committees. And so you may see a similar format here. One of the things that this committee asked about was the time frame. And so this time frame is an older time frame from over a month ago. So you can see that the data collection phase of this started in the spring and went into summertime, which obviously the architects knew that a lot of the site teams, the principals and such, would not be available for answering the questionnaires and the surveys. And a lot of time was spent at the last meeting discussing the questionnaire, the survey. I believe at some point in the past, this committee had asked for copies to know what kind of questions were being asked, and we went through those last meeting, you may remember. And I think it generated a lot more Q&A among the committee. And so one of the key questions was, what happens if I haven't seen the survey? What do I do? I want to take it. I want to give my input. What do we do now? And so what I was able to clarify with the partners at AE3 was that the survey was never intended to be a one-stop data collection. Thank you for your time. That's it. You've missed the window. It was really a first step in updating and collecting data that will provide them the information they need to do their work. So the survey was really designed to be filled out by a small team of people at the school site. Some sites may have used their site council. Some may have used their office staff, depends on the school and obviously the different constituents that they have. But if you look at this timeline here that lays it out over the months, after the data collection phase, one of the things that they absolutely planned to do all along was to visit the site and do interviews with the different constituent groups. And then all of that information gets compiled and put into their, it's basically a very complicated Excel spreadsheet, but it calculates things and makes references to other sheets and other tabs, and it allows them to come up with numerical values and different things. And all of that information becomes what they call the updated school profile. So let me fast forward here. Or actually, before I leave this slide, I just want to point out that they extended the deadline for the data collection until the end of October. And I believe I have a check-in with them next week, but I believe that we still have a couple of schools who haven't finished that yet. So until the schools have finished their individual survey data that they've submitted, the site interview doesn't take place. So I just want to make sure that this committee knows that. So more than likely the interviews and the site planning are going to extend into the month of January because some of the sites will need the extra time. Okay, so let me go to a different slide here. I showed this to the CBOC so that, and Brian had asked a question in the previous meeting about it. Here's step one about completing the questionnaires. Then they schedule the site review. Then they do the interviews. Then they update the site profile, and every school site will have an updated site profile. And then the other question that came up with the last meeting of the FAC was, at what point does the FAC get involved? How does that interface? And they have always intended to use the FAC to go through and help prioritize after they've updated the different site profiles so that you can go through the data, you can look at it, you can give your input, because it'll help fine tune it so that the board gets something that they can act with or act upon. Let me see if there's a couple of other slides. This one was about the website and how the survey data was input. This was just a snapshot of the actual survey tool. It's a Google form, and this committee, you guys saw the full thing last meeting, but this is just an update. This was shown to the CBOC, and I know it's hard to read, but the takeaway here is you can see the green versus the other colors, and the green is really meant to show that those are the schools that are moving along in the process, and that the ones that don't have green are still waiting on different components of either filling out the survey or the different questionnaire. Moving on, this is what one of the data collection samples looks like. So if I just zoom in and I show you this, it'll probably spur some questions, but it'll show you that this is what's being collected at each school site. So in this section, this example is showing the category of PE gyms and locker rooms and their overall score. And you may remember from last month's meeting, the questionnaire that was being filled out is asking, do the PE gyms and locker rooms have the ability to accommodate current needs? What's their overall physical condition, their overall size, flexibility? Then it goes to another area, science and labs, then the admin buildings. So the point of this is that this is not the only questions being asked of Centerville staff. There are others, but this gives you a sampling of what they're filling out. And again, all of this feeds into Google Sheets and Excel sheets that the architect can then use to formulate their questions when they visit the campus. Moving on past the data collection, this is another sample. Again, just going through the different things that they're collecting. And then the last piece of what they asked school sites to do was to take an existing map from the old long-range facilities plan from 2015 and mark it up. And they could print it out and write on it. They could use PDF if they wanted to and draw boxes and arrows. It's really whatever they wanted to do to show where things have been added, things have been taken away, things like that. And so obviously the architect has access to the facilities department in any site that has like brand new buildings. Perhaps American is a good example of that. If one of those buildings was added in between 2015 and now, we can provide them that detail. But if there are other things that maybe wouldn't be shown on a set of plans, we wanted the school sites to have the ability to provide that to the architect. So they basically mark up a PowerPoint slide for their school and send it back. And then they can do pictures, and these are just some examples of that. So as far as next steps go, Their original thing was they were trying to get all of the sites to finish the surveys by 10/21. As I mentioned, that did not happen. And so I believe we still have a couple that are straggling past the month of October. I have a meeting tomorrow with I have a few minutes on the principals agenda tomorrow to address this update with all the principals. So we'll answer any of their questions and see if they need any assistance. So this timeline shown on this slide will be modified based upon how many schools there are left to complete the questionnaire. And then you can see that the draft document will be developed in Q1 of 2023. I want to ask AE3 if they need to change that, if it's maybe towards the end of Q1 or if it needs to go into Q2, Q2. And then when I get that update, I will let this committee know the timeline if anything changes at our next meeting in whenever it is we meet, if it's December or otherwise. And then how this committee interfaces with this process and at what point we will want to agendize anything for this group to either as a group, large group, or smaller groups start analyzing what the architect has pulled together. So that's the update.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? One of the things I asked the CBOC, and I think is relevant here as well, is it'd be helpful to see more steps in the timeline. That slide you just showed, I just got a chance to briefly look at it. But what are the steps in developing this document? And how long do we think that'll take? Like, what's the project plan for that part of it? Recognizing that dates can change, but that would help. And then the other thing that I also shared at CBOC is that I think it will help if I, as chair, and I'm actually welcome if we wanted it to be a subcommittee of the FAC, but that works with staff to help design the review process so that we can use FAC time efficiently and effectively reviewing what's going to be a lot of information to process. So kind of helping, and it's similar to what was done before the last time FAC advised the board, which led to an update to the bond implementation plan. Is the then chair worked with staff to come up with the process, and we had several meetings over a number of months. So yes, those are two recommendations I have. Allison.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say that I thought I was really reassured to hear that this survey was only the first part of the process and that there would be a site visit because, you know, I work in the library. I'm one of those people that's in charge of one of those spaces that they tend to ask about, like the gym and the cafeteria and things like that. And often what happens is things like this get filled out at the site level by people who don't ever enter our space, right? So it's a small committee of people. No one there is a PE teacher. No one there ever goes into the gym and as part of their work. And then they answer the questions and they think everything's fine in the gym. And then the people in the gym are suffering from a big facilities problem. And right now we have some massive HVAC issues in our library that, the district has been wrestling with. But there are many times throughout this process that my admin, for example, has been not really aware that this was such an ongoing problem. And so it would be great, I think, if somebody would walk into all of these buildings. And I know how hard that is, but when people walk into my library, I'm like, hey, how's it going? What are you here for? And sometimes they don't even want to talk to me. And I'm the one that works in there every day. Like, we have the result of 3 massive leaks right now that's still unaddressed. And I kind of I'd love to tell somebody about it. So I think it's really great to hear that there's going to be a site investigation in addition to the survey, because I doubt that any of the problems that I've been reporting and there are work orders are actually on our survey. So it's really cool that you guys are going to come into the buildings.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? I had 2 additional questions. One was, I think several things. It would help if we could get the content that you shared for reference, but the slide I think had a community, or there was a community survey, I thought, and I wanted to understand how the community survey is going. And I may be misremembering, but I'm not but there were 3 parts, right? There was like the maintenance operations department, the educational leaders, and then a community piece on that slide. And I wanted to understand how that was going.
I have an update meeting with them next week with the architect, and so I will ask at that time. I think that the update that was provided to me and to staff is from the 18th, and that's now a few weeks ago. So let me get the update from next week, and I'll have it prepared for the next time that we meet, because as I'm hearing from Allison in the chat and from some other things, it sounds like some of the principals may have had trouble accessing things. That's why it's not complete. So let me double down and get the latest information from Doug at AE3. And if he's available, maybe even having him come present might be a better use of time instead of going through me, because you can get it directly from him. But either way, we'll get you the most up-to-date info.
Great. Benji.
Yeah, just for clarification, the survey that's going out, that's updating the master plan, this is for like updating the master plan. This is for maintenance issues or for future I'm just trying to understand. I'm hearing like maintenance issues come up, and usually I don't align those with master plans. Master plans like future building. I'm just clarification there.
The purpose of the master plan update is to address all things. So it would be, do you have existing issues that need to be addressed, like a maintenance issue? But what about the spaces that you have? Are they currently meeting your needs? What you're trying to do in the spaces that you have, like what does your science classrooms look like? What do your English classrooms look like? Are you able to do the instructional activities that you want to do in the existing spaces? And if no, then let's develop what that looks like. That's one element of the update to the master plan. So the questionnaires have been categorized into an instructional one, a maintenance M&O one, and then a community one. And that's what Brian was referring to. So we'll get updates on all 3 of those for you guys and get it so that you can look at it before this meeting. That way you've got time to generate questions, and you'll hear me talk less and we'll get to hear your questions more.
Thank you.
Great. Allison.
Sorry, yeah, just as a follow-up, I just wanted to say that it's hard to separate. That was such a good question. It's hard to separate those things on a survey sometimes, because if you ask a science teacher, for example, do you have what you need? And sinks is one of those things, but you have sinks in your classroom and they've never worked. It's a maintenance issue and a facilities issue. So sometimes it's just really hard for us sometimes to, I have AC units in my room, but they've never worked. I have sinks, but they've never worked. So do I have sinks or do I not have sinks? It can be really hard to sort of suss out the information that we need. So I do appreciate a survey that kind of asks about both, because it is hard to answer the existential question of, do I have sinks if none of them have ever turned on?
Tom. Robert.
Not sure how to phrase this, but kind of following up on what Benji's saying, in some ways, from a community point of view, we shouldn't be waiting for a bond to be fixing a sink. Why are some maintenance issues not being done? There's a picture of a fence with a 2-inch hole in it. We don't need to wait. Bonds come every 10 years at best. So if we're having problems with the maintenance budget, then maybe there needs to be a different discussion.
Tom.
Yeah, Brian, currently we are doing our fit reports for SARC, and they're going into a little bit more detail than probably the team that's out there doing these reports. So I was wondering if it would be beneficial to give them some of our information that we find out as we do our fit reports, so they'll have a little bit better idea.
The short answer is absolutely yes.
I'm not even, I don't even know what a fit report is.
The fit report is it's another acronym, right? Because we love our acronyms. It's a fitness inspection tool that was created for the sole purpose of being able to see if a school site is compliant with the Williams. It's because of the Williams lawsuit, but basically to make sure things are in compliance. Do students have access to qualified teachers is one element, so qualified staff. Another element is instructional materials. The third element is facilities, safe and secure facilities. So the FIT report is something that is done on an annual basis, typically by the maintenance department. And it basically looks at certain deficiencies. And if we find any, we fix them so that we can have a SARC, another acronym, school accountability report card that gets reported to the state so that we get a passing grade on our SARC.
Thank you. All right. I see no further comments and questions. Good discussion. Let's move on to item 8, outdoor learning and interactive spaces. Turn it over to Steph.
Okay, so sorry that it's the Danny show tonight. Hopefully it won't be like this all the time. Not that I mind, I'm sure you just don't want to hear me talk. So I was able to do some more digging. I found 2 documents that I wanted to bring to the committee's attention. The first of which is on this particular topic. There's something called educational specifications. And so this document was created as part of the original long-range facilities master plan by the architect LPA. This first page that I'm showing you here is page 76 of the 2014 educational specifications, and it talks about outdoor spaces. So what an educational specification does, for those of you who've never heard it before, is it is essentially the district's summary of what it would like to see in its facilities to facilitate the business of learning and teaching. And so this document was created back then. It discusses the outdoor spaces piece, and I can send this to the committee so that you can see it. And I was also told that we did an update to the long-range facilities plan in 2019 specifically for the educational specifications. So I want to show you that one too. And that document was specific to the middle schools. And that was because in preparation for some of the conversions, I'm assuming the intent was to try to have the conversation so that outdoor spaces would be covered as part of any future projects. So to that end, LPA updated it. And I can scroll through the rest of the document. They're not terribly long, so we'll send them out to you. They should pass through email just fine. But you can see that the outdoor space concept was covered in this document about what gardens could look like and what they would include, what outdoor commons areas would look like, patio areas, as well as outdoor amphitheaters. So I don't know if this helps answer the agenda item. This is what I was able to find, and staff would be interested in whatever conversation or questions that you have on this topic, but I wanted to make sure that you knew these documents existed. And let me just scroll through real quickly, even though this isn't about outdoor spaces. If I just scroll up, I'm going to start at the top very quickly, and I'll just show you some of the layouts and what this document is intended to do. Educational specifications don't say that something should look a certain way. It should have these type of features or elements in them. So here's what a typical 960 square foot classroom would look like. This is the minimum size that the state would reimburse us for. So we don't design classrooms smaller than this typically. This one is essentially the same. It goes through, these are SDC classrooms, and you can see that it starts adding on additional features because these are specialized programs. Here's what a counseling enriched space should look like. Storage, restroom, sensory, adjacent collab learning center. You get into, this is the outdoor space that I showed you earlier. And then it gets into some more technical things like, what does science look like at 6th grade? Here are the things that should be included. And you can kind of notice from the way that this is drawn that they're kind of blobs. They're rectangles and squares. These aren't actual designs, of course. This is just conceptually what the elements should be. So I think what's helpful about these documents is you can make a laundry list of bullets or numbered items, but it's kind of nice to see a visual so that you can picture what it could look like or what it should look like, depending upon what program it is that you're trying to design for. And again, this second document from 2019 was all about middle schools. So it should have guided the design process for any new buildings at the middle schools in preparation for the junior high school to middle school conversion. So I'll stop there because I don't know where else you'd like me to go on this particular topic, but I would like to hear more about that. Thank you.
Thank you. No, I think those are excellent. Those are definitely resources we should get out and take a look at. That'll be important when we look at the long range facilities plan update, because these documents basically encapsulate kind of the Fremont's facilities standards. I think more. And probably something was lost because previously Kelly brought up this item as an item that staff was looking at. So I think, unfortunately, Kelly is out on leave, and so I think that is part of what may not have been clear in terms of what we were looking for this particular item coming to FAC. So perhaps. So I'll catch up with Mr. Hillman on this item and talk to him more about it. But are there any comments or questions about this item while we are on the topic? Okay. Hearing none, I will move on to item 9, which is to reconsider standing rule on term end dates. And this is my item. Although I may, pulling up the language so I get it correct. So in May 27, 2020, shared the minutes with the committee and the agenda. But in case you didn't get a chance to look at them, there was a vote taken to create a standing rule that would have all terms of all members of the FAC conclude at the end of September, regardless of when they were appointed. So the board could appoint you for a 2-year term, but if they appoint you in December, it actually ends up being a 1-year 9-month term because the standing rule would have the term end in September. And at the time, the reading from the minutes, the thinking was that this was kind of customary for all committees to do this. Logistically, that has been a challenge for me and Laura because first off, it's an additional level of tracking, which we could certainly do. But second off, September is a bad is more difficult because we have to make sure that anybody who might want to reapply or getting those things handled ideally earlier, like in June, before the summer, because it has to be on a board agenda before the end of September. So logistically, the standing rule is really challenging, and I wanted to ask the committee if they would turn it more into amend the standing rule to turn it more into a guideline, but that the terms would follow the full 2 year. The terms, people's terms would either complete or until someone was appointed to replace them, but that we would try as a guideline to perhaps end them in September, or actually alternately just eliminate the standing rule altogether. Actually, is actually what I should be recommending. That would actually be my first preference. It's fairly, and it may be fairly complex, but I'll let Laura add to that and clarify anything.
Sorry, I was hand raised happy. So I just want to clarify, I was also unaware of this standing rule, and I apologize for that. It's not in our bylaws or in the FAC's bylaws, and I'm really glad that it was in the minutes and brought to our attention, because it did come to bite us in September, at the end of September, right ahead of our October meeting, when 3 of our members needed to be reappointed. So thanks to everyone for your support in helping reapply quickly and everything that Brian did to help get our members back who were able to return. So just a note there. But also, I just wanted to address that the student member who's not here tonight expressed through Surfboard E that this is also really problematic for her because when we have a student that appointed that's a senior, they will not be able to follow this timeline. And our labor partners they've done, I'm sure, a great job of knowing this in the past, but we receive our appointments for the following year. I started receiving those in summer. So I don't think that this is easy for our groups that have follow a fiscal year to maintain this odd September 30th cutoff date. Those are my 2 cents, and I appreciate the consideration of this item.
Allison.
Yeah, it was more of a question or confusion. I was just I was wondering why September, because it just seems like a strange time. Like for students, they've barely been back at school, although now a little bit more. And I don't know. I wondered why this September date and yeah.
Maybe Robert's going to respond to that.
No, I was just wondering, I mean, it seems like we should have a common date. Otherwise, if you get members every month, it's a little bit disruptive in a different way. I mean, it's nice to have the introductions today to get everyone up to speed. But are you suggesting a different date, or we just take members anytime during the year?
My recommendation would be to eliminate the standing rule and take members, at any time.
I mean, we also should have general recruitment, right? I mean, or no? Okay.
What? I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Do we have a general recruitment? If terms are expiring, if in the worst case there's someone term that expires every single month, then we have to find a new person every single month to take their place. Or on another committee, we have a different deadline, but there's terms end on a specific month, and so next month, and so we recruit new people before that month ends, and so the next month we start with a new group of people. Otherwise,
And what month did you choose? Which committee is this?
That was
month?
different. We turn over in June because we actually, in the first 2 years of that committee, we met during the summer, so we started our year in June. But I don't recommend that either for most committees. So it seems like we should start a new group in the fall sometime. So, for example, if the board has to keep voting every month to get a new community member, and then they have to have you have to, get on the agenda every month to appoint that new community member versus doing it once a year, or as needed.
In my opinion, it has not been that serious of a problem. We've had members who've had to resign midterm, and so we have to appoint someone regardless.
Okay.
Okay. But that is my opinion, but I definitely respect the comment. And Allison.
Sorry, I keep adding stuff, but I just wanted to say I think it seems like maybe for most members, it makes sense for a term to roughly correspond to a school year. I mean, certainly for employees, knowing whether they're going to be working at the district the following year, like that's a defined term. For parents, I know my kid's going to be going to this school for this year. I want to volunteer for this thing for this school year. Makes sense. I think the only person for whom that's a little bit challenging is students. It is a little bit challenging in the spring of the previous year to find a student who's willing to commit to this for the following year. And I see where having a term that ends in October would be not possible for a student, for example, who's a senior, who's going to be leaving. They're not going to be with us for the first 2 months of their college experience the following year. So I wondered if I see what Robert's saying, that sort of a rolling gate of admissions would be really challenging. And we definitely don't want to have gaps, right, where there's no FUDTA rep or no CSEA rep or, no student rep. That would be bad. But it seems to me, and I haven't been doing this very long, that there's maybe a difference between the student and everyone else, and that it might be possible to have a September to June term for everyone except for the student, and that for the student it could be, I don't know. I'm throwing that out there.
Well, I would like to request that, Laura and I have gotten a lot closer on our tracking of terms and making sure we get people in time, and we'll try to line them up better over time as well. Having heard this feedback, but I think having the flexibility for me, the chair, and Laura, our supporting staff, to manage this, I think would be what our request would be. Just to eliminate standing rule and have us manage it. We'll continue to do that, and then if a problem happens, then yes, then we can revisit. But like this time, Laura did a great job upon discovering this, getting people to reapply, and we're getting 2 new members in, and I think we can manage through. I mean, I think we're better off managing through any disruption. New members are added. I'm happy to spend meeting time outside with new members to bring them up to speed at any time. So I'm still looking for a motion to eliminate our standing rule, or an alternative option. Chair, can I make the motion?
Yeah, I kind of would suggest you make the motion I can make a motion just to remove the standing rule if that's what you want. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Robert. There's a motion. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Thank you, Bobby. Is there any further discussion?
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's totally reasonable what you're asking. I just wonder, is there any language in there existing? I apologize because I'm new to this committee and have not fully read the bylaws, but is there any language that a seat can't be left vacant for a certain amount of time? Or that would be my only concern with not having any kind of rule, is that there would be a big chunk of time where there was no rep from SEIU, for example, or something like that.
I'm not following your question. I mean, we have a few vacancies right now, but those are more driven by people resigning and not being able to fill them.
Yeah.
So I'm we don't have a parent from the mission attendance area, which I would love to fill. Well, actually, we have 2. Actually, we're in really good shape, all things considered. We're missing a parent from the mission attendance area and a parent not represented in the attendance area. That'd be like Blankler or Robertson, are the two members we're missing right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Divya.
I wanted to check if anything is being done about these about these committees and the openings which are here. Because honestly, I was serving on the LCAC committee for a couple of years. My term ended in September. I didn't even know that there were openings in this committee. I was searching for something on the FUSD site, and then I stumbled upon this page, and that's how I applied. So maybe there are other parents who are interested but don't know that there are openings and such meetings where parents are invited and that they can contribute to.
No, I agree. I know staff does try to push it out into the newsletters to the principals and those sorts of things. So there's definitely some, but there's always more outreach that can be done. But,
yeah, I have been
with
FUSD with my kids for 7 years, and till now I don't know any messages which came in from the schools regarding the openings in these in the form of formal communication, right? Maybe we can reach out to the PTA and ask them to send it out in their newsletters, especially these openings. You can reach out to mission area and ask them to communicate. I'm confident that there are many parents like me who wish to be participating in their kids' activities, and any benefit is really good, right?
Yep. No. Well, thank you. We'll definitely make another push. I know we
Sure.
rather
I have one more
CBOC
thing
as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I actually was in and out because I was driving today. I got a little late from work. I thought I'll come in early. So I have one question. I'm not sure if it was discussed earlier. This is regarding the training or any documents which I can read so that I can prep myself for this meetings and how I should be contributing, what I can say, and what are the
Oh,
things which
fantastic.
come in on a monthly basis. So if you can share those, I can be more prepared for the next one.
No, happy to. And even spend some time offline talking with you and welcome maybe you and Benji or any new member to help bring you guys up to speed. Just
Oh, that would be helpful.
we can
Thank
connect
you, Brian.
offline. Happy to do that. Made a note of that. Okay, cool. Well, we have a motion and a second. I will call the vote. Will you please, if you're in favor, please raise your virtual hand. All right, thank you. Please lower your virtual hand. If you are opposed to the motion, please raise your virtual hand. All right, seeing no nays, the motion carries. Thank you again. That takes us on to our next item. And I'm running a bit long on the agenda. The next item is staff update. And since I'm seeing, unfortunately, Mr. Hillman had to go, maybe we can carry that over to our next meeting. It's a standing item anyways. Unless there's something you know of, Laura, that wanted to be communicated there.
No, I don't. Thank you.
All right, so then committee sub-reports, it's another standing item. We don't have any current subcommittees. So there's nothing to discuss here unless somebody wants to talk about forming a new subcommittee. But hearing no discussion for that, I'll move on to item 12, thoughts on future meeting topics. In the agenda, I've been trying to keep track of all the topics that I'm working with staff to schedule. So you kind of see the list of the ones we've discussed before. And this would be the time if there's any other topics you want considered for our agenda, where we won't just go into depth, but where we can briefly determine if there's enough interest in the committee for that topic. So does anybody have any topics they wanted to bring up for future meetings? Great. Well, you see, we got the long range facilities plan is going to be the big one, and I'll continue to work with staff on figuring out when is a good time for these other items. Our last item is the review meeting dates, and there's some updates and actions I would like the committee to consider. So I'll go through each one at a time. Our next meeting is on November 30th. The ask is that we move that to December 7th. And the reason, I mean, it's kind of, the reason for that is originally we were supposed to be on December 7th, but the board was having their board meeting that day. They recently moved their board meeting to the 14th. There was a requirement that they had required them to do that. And so I and staff are asking that we push our meeting to the 7th, which will give more time for us to prepare, because the 30th is really just right after the Thanksgiving break. So, and I'll take each of these scheduling items one at a time, but is there I guess I could just quickly put it to a vote. Is there a question or comment? Allison.
Yeah, hi. I can make it either way on the 7th. I was just curious for procedural reasons whether this would be an in-person or virtual meeting.
Oh, that's topic C, actually. And I think the proposal, well, actually, we'll handle that on topic C? for the moment?
No, for sure. It may make a difference whether or not people can make it. So it might be
Oh, okay.
it
All
might be prudent to hold like a 3-part vote. Like, can you move it? Can you move it if it was virtual? Can you move it if it was in person? Just a suggestion. I can
All
make
right.
it either way. I'm just saying for others.
It's a good topic. Okay, so yes, Laura. Oh, I'm not hearing. Is anyone else hearing Laura?
You're muted.
I raised my hand again instead of unmuting. Sorry. So the CVOC, which just met right before this group, did vote to move their meeting to December 7th and also requested that it be in person at Horner. So if that affects this group at all, just wanted to clarify that that was the decision and request that they made.
And to provide a bit of context, pre-COVID, we did a lot of meetings at school sites to see construction or see facilities. And so we're getting back to that. And what we do is the CVOC meets before, we meet after, and in between we do a little tour of the site. Oh. So, Mary, definitely would ask you to share that publicly as well in the meeting, because that is good to talk about virtual versus in-person meetings. I don't know if we have talked about that as a committee.
We have. I just wasn't sure for this particular meeting if some people would be only available virtually.
All right. I apologize. I don't remember the conversation right now. I've been in too many things.
I remember only because I'm new. We talked about this idea of site visits, and it was explained last time that that's what you guys used to do, and we just explored the idea of whether in person would be a good idea, and there seemed to be quite a lot of interest, but there wasn't a decision about what to do with this particular meeting, especially with the date change.
Yeah.
It seemed like people were generally in favor with the idea of seeing school sites, but there wasn't like a vote.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's true. And okay, you refresh my memory now. And then, and it's tricky because we're not really set up to do hybrid meetings. So I'll have to think through how best to do this. Bobby.
And I think what we also talked about it is it being in the spring because it was getting dark so early and we don't meet until 7:30. And that was why, to have a tour, the tour would have to be during the light. That's what comes to mind when I remember the conversation.
And to add to the CVOC discussed that and actually are planning something in the spring at Centerville as a target site. Horner, the thought was Horner's already mostly complete, and obviously you wouldn't be able to tour outside, but be able to see the classrooms internally, just to provide some context. Diane.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that at least right now, it looks like the state of emergency is going to be lifted in February, and all of our committees will then be required to meet in person again, unless the legislature takes some action that would allow committees to keep meeting virtually. But I anticipate by February, we're going to be required to be meeting in person.
Thank you. That's helpful. All right. So I guess probably the best way for me to get the temperature, to understand where the committee sits would be first whether it's in person or virtual. We should move to, I think we should move to December 7th. Is there any objection to moving to December 7th? So we'll go ahead and move our next meeting to December 7th, seeing no objection. And then the proposal is that it potentially be in person at Horner. And why I say potentially, that, you know, it's pending whether staff can schedule it, and that be true for CBSE as well. Allison.
Quick question. Bobby made me think of it. Would it be at the same time?
The only adjustment might be more of an overlap, the overlap time for the tour. We wouldn't start before 7:30 though.
Cool. Thank you. I have another meeting that day that ends at 5, so I just thank you.
Fair question. So let's for everybody's planning purposes, the tour would start perhaps at 7 plus or minus, and we would start at 7:30 plus or minus. And then I guess because I guess I would get a quick show of hands, kind of a straw vote on how many people are in favor of potentially meeting in person on December 7th at Horner. If you please raise your virtual hand.
What would be the timings again? 7:30 to 9?
7 o'clock would be the tour. 7:30 to 9 would be the meeting.
Okay.
All right, and then please lower your virtual hand. And then please raise your hand if please raise your virtual hand if you would prefer it be virtual meeting on the 7th. Thank you, Mary. All right, so I think I have guidance to work with staff, and we'll let you know. Definitely be on the 7th, and hopefully in person at Horner. The next calendar item is our January 18th meeting. Normally we would be the first week of January, but the school district's on winter break that week, so we scheduled our January meeting for January 18th. But there is now a Fremont State of the District event that meeting that day. The CBOC considered this as well, and they elected to eliminate their January meeting or combine it, because February 1st is only 2 weeks away from January 18th. And I think in our case, and you know, unless there is important work we need the time to get done, that would be the only reason I can see at the moment why we might try to find another date in January. But at this point, I would recommend we cancel our meeting in January, and encourage all of you guys to attend the FEOST State of the District. And so that's the recommendation of the committee. We eliminate our January meeting, and we just have our February 1st meeting. And I guess I ask if there are any objections to doing that, or questions or comments. Actually, I don't know. Do I need to put that to a vote? Okay, so I think got enough direction. I'll summarize this whole topic. December 7th, our next meeting, potentially at Horner in person from 7 to 9, including a tour. We will eliminate our January 18th meeting, and then in the spring, March or April, we're looking to do an in-person at Centerville, where we can actually see. There'll still be construction going on, so we can kind of see it with the construction going on as well. Any comments or questions? thank you for helping me go through that. If there are no further items, then I will go ahead and adjourn our meeting at 9:01. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you.